Hi, welcome back. This is Pinnacle of Glory. I've got another discussion on the conclusion of the Border Trilogy. This is Cities of the Plain by Cormac McCarthy. So, I'm going to discuss everything about this book in the prior two books. Because when I was looking after finishing this, I wanted to talk to someone about it, but I don't know anyone that reads books. So, all I can do is try to find a YouTube video and get some vicarious couch co-op action, but there was none. All the reviews I saw are people who refuse to talk about the spoilers, and in doing so, they neuter their attempts to dissect this. So we're going to vivisect this book and talk about it. The 10-second review, 10 out of 10. Read it. Actually, it's not 10 out of 10. I'll say 8 out of 10. But the trilogy is 10 out of 10. All right. So our man, John Grady Cole, makes a triumphant return. And I love that he's back. And he's everything I hoped for in this book. Billy Parham is back. Billy is 28, 29 now. John Grady Cole is about 19. Been a few years since All the Pretty Horses. Been many years since The Crossing. And a lot of those themes play themselves out to the conclusion in this book. So the short version of this tale is John Grady Cole and Billy Parham, some other guys named Orrin, JC, Troy, Mac. They work on this ranch. And the world is changing. This is happening. The flames of industry and of a new age are encroaching upon the way of life that they knew. And the world is shrinking. As a result, they know that they'll be without purpose or a job soon. These men, many of them are older. John Grady Cole's the youngest, but he's a bit of a prodigy in his field. He's very perceptive. He's got an adroit mind. I mean, this guy has an acute understanding of how to tell if a horse is lame or not. At one point, just by looking at its ear, he can tell that there's something wrong with it. He's the real deal. They call him Cowboy. He's your action hero. He's the man who, as the world burns, refuses to give up on love. He refuses to say, he just plants his banner on the mound of love and says, I refuse to live in a world where love doesn't exist, where romanticism has no place, and where the age will move on without me. He says, I refuse to let it. He's the man who looked the apocalypse in the eye and told it, you have to move me. That's John Grady Cole. And his brother, spiritually, Billy Parham. The world is changing in this novel. John Grady Cole and Billy Parham are like best friends. They have a relationship similar to Boyd and Billy doing The Crossing. Billy Parham doing The Crossing. So what ends up happening is John Grady Cole falls in love with a woman. She's a prostitute named Magdalena. And yeah, that name is relevant. She's sort of seen as an angelic presence that doesn't belong in the world. She's too pure. And just as Mary Magdalene is a prostitute, so too was Magdalena. She's in Juarez, Mexico, I believe is the town. Now, John Grady Cole and the boys, Billy, go out to this, basically this whorehouse, and they're all out there having a good time, having a drink. And John Grady Cole meets this girl, and he falls for her. And he knows it's stupid. He tells everyone, I know it's foolish, but I don't care. I love her. And he says to a man at one point in a restaurant, this blind man. It's funny, huh? Blind men are very perceptive in Cormac McCarthy's novels. The blind man says, I don't think you're a fool. I think if there's something worth fighting for, it's what a man loves. And it's John Grady Cole saying, like I said, I'm not going to rehash it, but he refuses to bend. Everyone, everywhere, everything is telling him, your ideals will falter, you're just young. Don't you see how stupid this is? And he's like, I know it is. I know it is. But if you know All the Pretty Horses, he got ripped from the woman he loved in that novel. His mother was some theater girl, who basically a woman who yearned for the Parisian lifestyle of the New World. His father passes, his grandfather passes. Lacey Rawlins is nowhere to be seen in this novel, which leads me to think that there was a bifurcation between them, similar to Billy Parham and his brother after their parents are murdered in the crossing. So he starts to fix up this shack. The girl Magdalena tells him Eduardo, which is the pimp, will never allow it. He's never going to allow us to be together. You find out that Billy has kind of stayed away from Mexico for the most part. And there's a knife fight. And I have to tell you, the knife fight in this book was so good. To what do I compare this? It is, in No Country for Old Men, where Llewellyn Moss and Anton Chigurh promise each other to have this climactic showdown. Anton Chigurh never gets that showdown, though. Well, this book presents it as though you got that showdown. Sorry, my voice is dying right now, and I can't exactly hear my ears. I have a hearing injury at the moment, so all I've got is ringing in my ears, and it's making my speech difficult. Anyway, so what we have going on here is this knife fight, but we'll get to that. I'm going to take my time on this one. This book review is for me. It's not for you. This discussion, rather, it's for me. You can bear witness to it, like Billy Parham bears witness to John Grady Cole. But, there's something that is fascinating. John Grady Cole's intelligent. He's shown to be very intelligent. He plays chess with Mac, the owner of the ranch. Dominates him. So he's not only intelligent, he's cunning, he's brave, he's quick. He's got the whole package. He's athletic. He's the real deal. The all-in-one cowboy. And he's virtuous. He's very virtuous. He tames horses, animals. He's very, very wise beyond his years. He's got that connection to the world. That connection that all the other men in the novel lost somewhere along the way. Even Billy. But he didn't lose it. In fact, that ember burns brightly within him, while the rest of the characters are kind of collapsing under the weight of modernity. John Grady Cole says, I'm not moving on. This is it for me. I have nothing. So you have this prostitute and Eduardo are basically the conflict of this novel. And even they are just analogs for the different typological situations we find ourselves in. He tries to build a shack. He gets the blessing of Mac. Mac gives him his deceased wife's ring, says she would want you to have this. Even though he thinks it's young and naive, he still gives his blessing. Like these men, I want to point something out. A minute ago I said they lost that along the way. They lost it, but not out of bitterness, out of realization that And Billy says this straight up in a conversation. His discussions with John Grady Cole are my favorite in all three books. He basically says something to the effect of, it's not cowardice, it's knowing when you've been beat. And I was beaten, basically is what he says. Then he tells John Grady Cole something that if you've read The Crossing, you'll understand just how potent this is, how much meaning there is to it. He says to him, you know, you remind me of Boyd in all the right ways. You remind me of Boyd. So they're like spiritual brothers. And that's an important element to this because of what Billy does later for John Grady Cole. John Grady Cole goes to Billy, says, listen, how much money I gotta pay to get this prostitute away from Eduardo? Billy says, it'd probably cost you $2,000. Do you know how foolish that is? He asks Billy, will you go talk to him for me? If I go, it'll break out into war. But if you go, you can be my man and kind of intercede for me. And you want to know what? Billy is a man of honor. He goes. Billy goes. He and Eduardo have a very spiritual conversation. They both agree John Grady Cole's out of his mind. It's not going to be well. They both sense that this isn't over, that somewhere along the way, the waters of chaos are stirring about, and this primordial soup is kicking up grime and detritus from the bottom of the abyss, and that's what's happening. So anyway, as the story continues, John Grady Cole talks to Billy, who comes back and tells him, dude, it's not gonna work, man. This guy has so much money in her. John Grady Cole won't hear it. He says, I don't care. Billy says, he gives him the talk. He tells him, listen, you stupid, naive fool. It doesn't work like that. Don't you get it? But he's got a soft spot for him because he sees himself and Boyd in that. And he understands, he even says, I'm not going to be able to talk you out of it. And I want you to be happy. I want to help you. But I know it's doomed. Billy's a man of honor. You can't overlook that. You really cannot overlook Billy Parham. I love John Grady Cole. He's my favorite character. But Billy Parham is a contender. I like them both very much. But this is John Grady Cole's story. It really is. It's presented that way too. And Billy, once more, just like if you've read my Crossing or watched my Crossing video, Billy is a witness more than a participant. Well, with one exception. We'll get to that. Maybe I'll just cut to the chase. There's so much symbolism and kind of recidivism, or these inveterate themes playing out is what I meant to say. Yeah, but it ends with John Grady Cole making a plan to get this girl Magdalena to make the crossing. She dies. Eduardo kills her. He sends his boy, Tiburcio, I think his name is. And, he slits her throat. It's a brutal scene. John Grady Cole buries his face in his hands. He made all the arrangements. He talked to some older guys. He talked to some younger guys. Talked to everyone about it. They all laughed. They all knew it wasn't going to work out. And somewhere in John Grady Cole, he knew it wasn't going to work out too. And so did Magdalena. She's a epileptic girl. They think she's possessed by some spirit. Others say it's a superstition. But the point is, she's gone. And on the last time they see each other, John Grady Cole, he reminisces with her about the events of All the Pretty Horses. He talks about his mother a little bit. Talks about getting stabbed. Talks about going to jail. All those things come up. Tells her he loves her. It's going to work out. Don't be afraid. But he made promises against forces that he could not weather. Because Eduardo, in some twisted way, was also in love with Magdalena. But in a different way. Eduardo is the shadow of John Grady Cole and Billy Parham. Eduardo has made the crossing also. But while Billy Parham and John Grady Cole cross from Texas to Mexico, from Arizona, New Mexico to Mexico, Eduardo has crossed into America, which is representative of entering another world, weathering that world and returning changed. And the men in the novel who do this become like, it's almost like a form of power scaling. You're nobody if you've not made the crossing. You're just a kid. So Eduardo has made the crossing as well. It's like a form of plot armor, almost. Like, that doesn't work. Anyway, yeah, he's made the crossing. So anyway, John Grady Cole's on the run. Police think he did it. Billy Parham goes to look for him. Billy makes the crossing for his friend. He does it for John Grady Cole. He hates Mexico after what's happened. He hates what it represents. He lost everything there. Remember, Billy did not avenge his parents. He did not regain the horses. And Billy lost Boyd, and Billy could not retain the bones. Billy wasn't able to succeed. Billy failed in Mexico. That was the point of the crossing. All his efforts came to nothing. He lost his sister, his like spiritual sister, this Mexican girl that joins them. He lost everything. He lost the wolf. He lost his parents. All of it, man. And he basically says, I will suit up and I will make that crossing one last time for what they've done. So Billy goes into the whorehouse while John Grady Cole's on the run. Everyone's looking for him. Billy caught wind that Magdalena died. In fact, he sees a photo of her throat cut. Meanwhile, John Grady Cole goes to a morgue and sees her. They haven't made contact with each other yet. What ends up happening is John Grady Cole goes into the whorehouse and he fights Tiburcio. I'm sorry, I actually forget his name off the top of my head. But the guy who actually killed basically Eduardo's right hand, Billy and him fight. Billy gains the upper hand. And he goes into the office of Eduardo and has another conversation with him. Eduardo doesn't even stir. He's just calm behind the desk with his silk shirt, his gold chains. He's looking so cool. Billy, the cowboy, a dying breed, a man of a world that no longer exists. They have a stare down, a showdown, psychological, spiritual. Eduardo says to him, I warned you this would happen if you didn't restrain your friend. But even now, I'll let you turn around and walk away. After all, you must know the police are after him. So Billy goes to the police station. He doesn't kill Eduardo. They don't fight. Billy has some words for him. He says, damn you and all of your kind. Damn you and all of your kind. What does Eduardo do? He smirks or something like that. But Billy, when he's talking about your kind, he's talking about that anti-type. The one that, he's like the eye sucker from The Crossing. If you know that scene, you know what I'm talking about. It's basically Judge Holden type of character who's in The Crossing for maybe 2 pages, and then he's gone. But Eduardo's like that. He's born from that. He's cut from that same cloth. Now, these cities of the plain It's the two cities, the one in America and the one in Mexico, right on the border. And within these cities, they're in this tenebrous area of pandemonium, frankly. John Grady Cole grabs his father's knife and he goes to confront Eduardo. And I'm waiting the whole time for some Llewellyn Moss action where John Grady Cole gets killed before he can have that final showdown. It's not what happens. They have their final showdown, and holy crap, it's good. John Grady Cole is he's the all American Western hero, except he shines with the light of virtue. He's got arete, I think is what the Greeks call it. And that light shines, but Eduardo's got this equally powerful umber about him, right? And these forces clash. They have this knife fight that goes on for several pages. All the while, Eduardo's taunting him. Even now, cowboy, you can turn around and leave. You don't have to die. I'm trying to give you every advantage. Don't you understand? John Grady Cole's getting sliced up. Bad. He's losing. He's about to die. No one knows where he is. Billy Parham can't find him. He's out there all alone. Mac and the boys are worried, but they can't find him. Anyway, Eduardo gets several advantages on John Grady Cole. He cuts his stomach open bad. Cuts an E into his thigh. Tells him all this for a whore. A whore. John Grady Cole, spurred on by light, but the desire to force goodness in a world that does not reward it. He says, I only want to kill you. I don't want to talk to you. So John Grady Cole doesn't speak much in that fight. But Eduardo is putting on a performance. He's like an actor on a stage, and he knows it. He knows that he's playing a part of a bigger game. He's conscious of it. Because, like I said, he made the crossing. The men who have made the crossing in these books are men that have gone through this baptism of suffering, of sorrow, of disappointment, or they're men who have caused the suffering, disappointment. Those who have not undergone that crossing, that baptism, they're of a different caliber. They're not players on the stage. They're not the characters in the dreams that happen in these novels. And the dream sequences are very important, but that's for later. Right now, Eduardo and John Grady Cole, they're in a wrestling match of which neither of them survive. Both men die. And I have to tell you, John Grady Cole's death, holy crap, that affected me. I had to close this book. I had to sit down for about 15 minutes and just stare. Like, I knew it was coming. The novel kind of all but shouts in your face, hey, he's not coming back from this. But Eduardo ends up stabbing him through the ribs. John Grady Cole stops defending himself, accepting basically that he's going to not make it. And what he does is he sticks his knife right up through the jaw of Eduardo, clamping his mouth shut. Eduardo tries to pull out the blade. He can't do it. Collapses. Anyway, John Grady Cole finds this kid, and he tells this boy that he's a legendary knife fighter, and he just murdered or killed his wicked foe. And it's reminiscent of Boyd. If you remember, Boyd has these songs sang about him, about how he's the hero who made his final stand. Well, John Grady Cole is the same thing. They're embodying that same cycle, okay? They call Billy Parham at the instructions of John Grady Cole. Billy arrives. John Grady Cole's dying. It's rough. It's a rough conversation. It's very, I mean, there's no, these guys don't speak with a colorful vocabulary. They're very, very short, very frank. And that's their strength, isn't it? But John Grady Cole asks for some water. He's bleeding out. Tells him, I just wanted to kill him after what he did. He murdered her. And Billy's like, I know. And he dies in his arms. Well, he doesn't die in his arms. Billy runs across the street to get water for him, and when he returns, John Grady Cole dies. And it's a full circle moment for Billy Parham, because he wasn't there when Boyd died, his biological brother. He dies off screen like Llewellyn Moss. But John Grady Cole dies on screen. And Billy is able to grab his brother's body and bring it across. What he wasn't able to do with Billy, or with Boyd, he was able to do for John Grady Cole. And he completes his arc. Except he doesn't. Not yet. Funeral arrangements are made. And while you're in the middle of grieving for this, I mean, you don't even get to catch your breath. Cormac pulls a Cormac and skips ahead into the future. John Grady Cole's long gone, forgotten about. Gone the way of the dodo. You're in the next century. And suddenly, Billy is 78 years old. He's an extra for a bunch of cowboy movies and stuff. He's basically becomes the blind man from The Crossing. He becomes those sage-like characters that carry those sacred burdens and those heavy wounds. He becomes one of them. Those people that you pass thinking, I don't care what you have to say, old man. Even though he's carried stories within stories in his eyes. His eyes have weathered storms that most men can't even fathom exist. That's Billy Parham. Billy Parham has a discussion with some man under a bridge because now he's homeless. He's wandering. He wants to die. This man tells him about a long dream. And the dream basically, it sets variables up and says, at old times and old places, this story will be filled by various characters. And then he gets set up with a woman named Betty who takes him in. He's having a dream about Boyd. And he's screaming, Boyd, where are you? Boyd, where are you? Betty wakes him up, just tells him, Boyd must have been important. He kind of rambles on about how important Boyd was to him. But then he says, I'm not what you think I am. I ain't nothing. I don't know why you put up with me. She says, well, Mr. Parham, I know who you are, and I do know why. You go to sleep now. I'll see you in the morning. Now, that ending disappointed some people, from what I understood. And I got it. Like, the John Grady Cole jump to 50 plus years in the future is jarring. But I have to tell you, from a spiritual kind of standpoint, which McCarthy clearly writes about, it makes sense for the story. She recognizes him. I think she's speaking spiritually here. I recognize you for what you are. You're one of those people. Like you're the blind seer. You're the man who carries those burdens that make him unrecognizable to others. But I see him for what he is. And you are unique. And that's Billy's role. Billy is a witness. It's like fate. I mean, they talk about fate a lot in this. This is very fatalistic. Did John Grady even have a choice? Was he fulfilling a role? How come Billy Parham couldn't end it right there? Save John Grady Cole's life. Why didn't he just slay Eduardo It's like it wasn't his role. He wasn't allowed to. The author, God, wouldn't allow him to. That was not his position. He was here to witness. Billy is, he's you. He's me. He's the reader. He's the witness. I've got some stories. I can relate to these characters in a lot of ways. I could tell you about them. You wouldn't care. And you could tell me about them. I'm not going to say I wouldn't care. I would care. But I think you get the point I'm trying to make, is that, go and tell your tragedies to someone on the corner, a clerk, whatever. You're going to find they're checking their phone. They just want you to get the hell out of their face, kind of thing. That's the Billy. You and I are Billy. And he's a witness. He's not allowed to fix the story. He's only allowed to witness these stories of these great figures. He's a traveler, not a participant. And it's so sad. These novels are devastating. And McCarthy's a great writer. There's a lot more I could say. There's so much symbolism in this. So many references are called back to. For example, one thing I really enjoyed was when John Grady Cole is playing chess with Mac. He normally destroys him. But one time Mac gains the upper hand on him. Mac thinks that John Grady Cole let him win. John Grady Cole tells Billy no. And the implication is that he's so distracted with Magdalena. This is long before she passes, by the way. But anyway, I don't know. There's a lot more I could say. I'm going to stop this here. It went on for a long time. Maybe one day I'll write a proper script and do like a short essay on this. I have to return this to the library. I'll have to purchase it. I have The Crossing. I don't have the other two books. Read them, check them out. I'm in my 30s, and as such, I really resonate with John Grady Cole. That character who I resonate with Billy too, with the whole I've lived long enough to see tragedy, grief, the unfairness of life swallow up those who stood against it. I'm experienced enough to know that the idealism of John Grady Cole will not stop the forces of in this dauntless march of time. But I'm also not so jaded and bitter that I can't look on at men like that and admire them. Admire their desire for a better world. Their desire that, like, piss off Eduardo. I'm marrying Magdalena. We're in love. We want to get married. We're going to fight for that thing that everyone says we can't have. There is something admirable about that. There is. I think there is. A modern day Zoomer would probably call John Grady Cole a simp or something like that. And maybe there is some of that. But John Grady Cole's he's not a type of character that will accept defeat. I don't know if I said it earlier. Lacey Rawlins is not in this novel. Yeah, I did say it. Okay, sorry. Stream of consciousness. I'm not going on a script here. So, so John Grady Cole is very admirable in many ways. He's brave. He's courageous. He's endured tragedy. The world he knows, he's becoming a fossil. And Billy Parham and the other guys, they're all admirable too. And I like a lot of the scenes where Oren is just talking to John Grady Cole at breakfast. They all love each other. They all respect each other. Sorry. Grab a drink here. I've been abusing my voice lately, so screaming for voiceover. Anyway, these guys are very noble, very, very upright men in an indecent and changing world. So one of them, this old man talks to John Grady Cole on the porch. He's a man that existed at the turn of the century. He lived through the world wars. He speaks, and John Grady Cole sits at his feet and listens a few times. They have conversations. Whereas everyone else kind of writes him off as this crazy old man. John Grady Cole, like Betty says to Billy, I see you. John Grady Cole sees that man and basically says, I see you. I know what you are. You are that soul that's lived too long. You've you've lived through all these tragedies that normally one living through one would make you have seen stuff. This guy's lived through many. And they have great discussions. Yeah. What a wonderful book. I think that'll do it here. Why don't we stop? Cormac McCarthy's excellent. I've got other books coming. Maybe some video essays, We'll see. Anyway, take care. I know, by the way, before I go, I know that there's so much that I've left unsaid. There's a lot of elements to this. But I think it's a worthy conclusion to The Crossing and All the Pretty Horses. And John Grady Cole and Billy Parham's relationship is one of my favorite. They go grabbing these wild dogs together with the boys. That's a really fun scene. And it's just, it's like they're reliving their childhood together. And it's just wonderful scene. Yeah, it's excellent. As for Billy, he doesn't get closure. Not really. He lives to be a rambling, weak, feeble, forgotten old man, a nobody in an age that's long since forgotten men like him. And I feel like that might be that might be what's waiting for me too, for all I know. I feel like I've watched the world change the last few years. I feel like wisdom has no place in this world, and people, they have no desire to hear what older people have to say. I'm not even old, but I'm old enough, and it's just, I don't know. You hit a certain age and yeah, I won't wax poetic about this. I'll stop. Read these books, man. They're excellent.